One Night at the Opera. Chapter 4. I found myself in a large banquet hall, where there were many tables set with tea utensils. All were free, except for one, and there sat a very interesting company. 2 succubi I had already seen, a snake woman and an angel girl, drinking tea beautifully in such an unusual company. And also, at the table sat something like a cat with wings, although by the appearance of the muzzle and ears like horns, this creature more closely resembled a gargoyle. I was escorted here, and stopped nearby, waiting for what the girls would say. All 4 turned their heads towards me, and silently drank tea, laughing, and vice versa, waiting for me to make the first remark. But I did not think long, and simply said hello. Hello. Hello, answered one of the succubi, and the rest except the angel laughed. I came closer and asked permission to sit down with them. What bad could happen? After all, there is an angel here, which means that the horned demonesses and the snake friend should not indulge in any special treachery. They nodded to the nearest free chair, and I moved it to the table, the 5th, chasing away the strange cat. In fact, she hissed and left as soon as I got close. I am Tobian, I introduce myself. Enjoy your meal. Will you share some pies? Take whatever you want, without fear, the angel began to speak. Thank you, I really stopped being afraid, and took a pie for myself, pouring tea into a mug. What are we going to do? This is supposed to be the first test, an adventure. Are you ready? The snake asked. Of course, I'll just drink a little, and then we can begin. Drink carefully, don't burn yourself, advised the second succubus, and moved a saucer of sweets towards me. How do you like our cups? I took a closer look at the drawing on the cup, and noticed that the drawn rabbit was moving. It was exactly the same rabbit that sometimes walked around the opera. In vests or jackets, or just in beautiful shirts, they all reminded me of the fairy tale about Alice in Wonderland, and to be honest, there were not many fewer oddities in this theater. The rabbit looked at me, wagged his ears, and tapped his paw. And then suddenly, and jumped through the air from my cup to another, where there were now 2 of them. They gave each other 5, and again jumped to the neighboring cups. And there the rabbits continued communicating with each other, but they were constantly jumping on the dishes. For a moment, the drawing broke off from the rounded side, and colorfully jumped across the entire table. At these moments, he looked like a blurry blot of different colors, but then, he landed again, and formed properly. Look for the one that escaped from your cup, the angel shrugged. I remembered exactly what my original rabbit looked like. His vest was purple, hard to miss. Everyone else's were different colors, and there were also repetitions, unfortunately. So, even seeing a purple vest, I once poked my finger at it, but the succubus on the left only shook her head. You have to catch him and put him back, explained the succubus on the right, otherwise everything will remain in disarray. And the disorder, indeed, began. The cups flew into the air, and began to circle around the table, dancing in a circle. The rabbits jumped first onto the table, and then onto the opposite cup, and so on endlessly. And the circle danced, adding even more confusion to this mess. I waved my hands, trying to catch rabbits, just for fun. Once I succeeded. And the rabbit drawn in my hand was wet. But green. No, a green vest, that doesn't suit me. I continued looking for a purple one. Eventually, I succeeded, and I placed the right rabbit back on my empty cup without a picture. Immediately, the other pictures also calmed down, and became static, motionless. Well done, the snake woman nodded to me, but that's not all. I had just picked up a teaspoon when another spoon attacked me and began fencing with me. I repelled its attacks, but it turned out that she was not the only one. Soon I had to take an extra one for myself, and repel the attacks of 5 spoons at once, and then the plates joined in. The saucers rose and began to loom menacingly. I don't like breaking dishes, but I had to hit them to get them to leave me alone. So one of the saucers cracked, and the other one broke. But it immediately came back together, and the cracks healed by themselves, so I continued this ridiculous activity, getting to my feet. One of the succubi threw a cup at me, hitting me hard, right in the forehead. I really didn't like it, and I dodged the second one, fortunately empty. They started throwing dishes at me, or rather, they just waved their hands near the cups and plates, and they themselves flew through the air, trying to hit me wherever they could. Some hit me on the knee or shoulder. It was unpleasant, but not traumatic. I parried the attacks and dodged. And then I realized, and tried to do exactly the same thing. There were dishes on the tables behind me, too. I waved my hand, as if grabbing a cup from a saucer, and it flew up, rising into the air. Then I spun it around a bit and aimed it at the succubus, who by that time was also standing on her feet, opposite me. Everything worked. As if with spells, we started throwing dishes at each other. And they crashed into each other in midair, a mug into a plate into spoons and forks. The forks were the most dangerous, but they never flew too fast, and therefore posed a very moderate threat. As long as they didn't hit your eye, so far we were lucky. We smashed the dishes against each other, and they restored themselves, and we sent them flying again. In the end, we got the hang of doing this completely at a distance. Just waving our arms, like conductors, and throwing saucers up to our heels at once. This went on for about 10 minutes, until we, laughing, got tired. In the end, it was completely unclear who had won, or whether anyone had won. And the saucers were so tired of breaking that they started to leak. They went limp and turned into melting saucers, like those melting clocks in Salvador Dali's paintings. We sat down at the table again, having finished laughing, and just started drinking tea. The angel just shook her head reproachfully, and I took another bun, dipping it in condensed milk. The tea was with bergamot, very tasty. The rabbits continued to move, but they were no longer jumping anywhere, but simply grimacing in one place, and tapping their paws. We had absolutely meaningless dialogues, playing with words, and chatting about nothing. The snake woman constantly tried to poke me in the side with her tail, discussing the nature of the time shown by the melting plates. I answered that since there were no hands there, it meant that I had absolutely no time for her tail. She answered that then there was none at all for anything. We argued whether she would be attractive if she started to melt too. But in the end we came to the mutual conclusion that we did not want to see that. The tea party continued for some time, and the dishes swirled around us, periodically. It was fun and great, and then, I was escorted into the next room, for a new adventure.